Again, thank you so much to everyone who has decided to join us today for our June FASD United Policy Forum. My name is Chris Melfi. I'm the policy coordinator here at FASD United. I'm joined by a few other members of our FASD United staff and policy team. I can see that we have Susan Shepard Carlson, who's joining us. She is past board chair of FASD United, and she is the lead of our policy team. We also have Tom Donaldson, longtime president of FASD United and huge member of our policy team here. Feel free to ask any questions you have throughout the forum in the chat or raise your hand. We can have this be as interactive as it needs to be. We're always happy for that. Again, I'm really happy to see so many faces here today as we are moving through some summer advocacy. Today, the focus is going to be on getting back to basics and making sure that we are all able to meet the moment right now. There's a lot going on in Congress, and there's a lot that has their attention both within and without the public health space. What is incredibly important right now is to keep FASD on the agenda. I think the way that we do that is by playing into the strengths of this advocacy community and doing what has already gotten us to this point. That's bringing living experience to life when it's paired with research and data. And that shows that FASD and addressing FASD, it's not even a bipartisan issue, it's a nonpartisan issue. And it's something that legislators can latch onto, can get on board with, and can make a real immediate impact on. Again, for those who are just joining, you can take a look at the top of the chat where I've included some links. So if at any point I reference a link or a website, scroll on up to the top of the chat where you should be able to see the correct link that I'm talking about. On the agenda today, we're going to move through our typical FASD United updates. We have a few new affiliate members who have joined the network that we're excited to share some information about. We also have some more information on FASD Impact Week coming up at the end of September. We'll then move into Fund FASD, what the budget process currently looks like, what FASD United is doing, and what this entire advocacy community can do. The lay of the land this month is going to focus on rules, reports, memos, and bills. There is a new proposed rule out from the Office of Management and Budget to discuss. There is a report from the American Academy of Pediatrics. The Department of Justice has put out a non-binding memo related to the 1999 Olmstead decision, and there are a few new bills that have popped up and are moving through committee in Michigan. We're going to round it off by talking about how we can all meet the moment, get back to basics, and start up a meeting with legislators again. Tom, before I jump in, we usually have Jen come in with any organization updates. I'm happy to walk through all of these organization updates, but I just wanted to give you a moment if there was anything that you wanted to say at the top of the hour, or if you had any updates for the community.
Yeah, Chris, thank you. It's just so good to see everyone. I hope everyone is having a great summer and is looking ahead to Impact Week in September. We're very excited. Thank you, Chris, for your leadership on the forum as always, and in the justice or the policy arena. I say justice because that is something I'd like to share, that we do have a new Justice Advisory Committee that will be having its first meeting in July. Really get going by the later part of the year. So that'll be yet another area that we're able to actively address. It's also another area where we are seeking funding. So that'll be of great interest as we go forward. But really, the thing is Impact Week. And there's, as you know, if you've been there, it's grown. There's so many activities going on there. I hope you have registered. And I know that Chris will be talking about that as you see here in the updates. But good to see everyone, and hope to see you in September.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tom. For anyone who is not part of the FASD United Affiliate Network and didn't join that meeting last week, we have a couple of exciting updates. We have 3 new members that have joined the FASD United Affiliate Network, and we're thrilled to have all 3 of them. Joining from Illinois, I believe Northwest Illinois, is Florissa Pediatric Development Center. Their representative most of the time will be Dr. Laura Gumbiner. I believe Laura is a clinical psychologist and has been an incredibly active advocate in this space already. So we are just thrilled to have Florissa joining the center. Florissa has the mission of creating accessible systems of care that promote early identification and provide resources and services for children at risk for developmental, medical, emotional, or behavioral difficulties. Also joining the FAC affiliate network is longtime advocate Megan Wohlers, who is the FAC program coordinator, and again, active advocate at Frontier Community Services up in Alaska. I believe Frontier Community Services has had an FASD program since 2001, and they are responsible for diagnosing both adults and children up in Alaska, and they offer family navigation services. And finally, joining the affiliate network from Pennsylvania, Lehigh Valley region, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, is the Center for Humanistic Change, whose mission is to give people, especially youth, the knowledge and tools that they need to make better informed and more positive life choices. They have a number of different impactful programs, including drug and alcohol intervention programs, and they also get into schools and do some in-school student mentoring. If you have any questions about any of these organizations, please feel free to reach out to Emma Baldwin here at FASD United. You can email them at baldwin@fasdunited.org for any other information. I'm just going to take a quick look at our attendance list and see if we have either Laura or Megan here if they're interested. I can see that we do. If you have anything that you'd like to share or say, or just say hi to everyone, please feel free to come off mute and do that. But there really is there's no pressure, low stake.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'm Dr. Laura Gumbiner. I am a psychologist in Northern Illinois, representing Florissa, and we are just beyond thrilled to be in the affiliate network. It's been a long time coming. We've been involved in advocacy for the last several years, making partnerships over years before that, and we have some grant funding to build out an FASD-informed system of care here in our region, and so we are so happy to be able to be connecting with more folks outside of Illinois as well.
Thank you so much, Laura. And I know that other advocates such as Michelle Traeger have been singing your praises for years. Thank you so much for joining in here. I also know that we have Emma Baldwin on this call. Emma, again, there's no pressure to come off mute, but if you have anything else that you'd like to add, feel free to come off and jump in at any time. But we are thrilled to have these three new organizations joining what is becoming an ever-growing affiliate network. So welcome to everyone.
I can quickly add that if anybody wants to set up a 30-minute call with me to talk about the affiliate network or learn more about who's a good fit for the affiliate network, I am always happy to do that. We are seeing so much growth and we are trying to keep up with the growth and continue more. And that takes the same village that our policy work does. So yeah, thank you, Chris, for sharing that news. We're excited.
Yeah, we are excited. And it's a great time to be growing, especially as we move into the summer months where everyone here at FASD United, and we hope everyone in your communities is excited for and preparing for 2026 Impact Week. As many of you, I'm sure you know, the Impact Week location has changed. We are no longer going to be at the DuPont Circle location that we were at last year. And the date has slightly changed compared to last year. This year, we're going to be at the end of the month. So Impact Week is September 27th through 30th, and it's going to be held at the Hyatt Regency Crystal City, which is just across the Potomac in Arlington, Virginia, actually a bit closer to the hill if you were to use an Uber, closer to the mall, again, if you're going to use the Uber, or Washington, D.C.'s unbelievably clean and efficient metro system. I believe it's less than a 15-minute Uber ride to Capitol Hill from the new site, about a 45-minute ride on the metro if you choose to do that, and we'll have plenty of hands-on help and guides for how to use the metro if that's how you want to get around. The conference site is also about a 10-minute drive or Uber right over to the National Mall if you want to take a look at anything going on in the mall. Or again, 30 minutes on the metro. I really can't overstate how clean and nice the metro system is in Washington, D.C., especially if you were to compare it to, if your only familiarity with the metro system is in New York City, take for instance, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by what Washington has to offer. Registration for all Impact Week events is, of course, now open, including for Hill Day. The entire week is totally free, with the exception of, your travel to get there, your stay at the hotel, and if you choose to come to the Red Shoes Gala, which I should mention is at the same site as the conference. So there will be no running back and forth from Capitol Hill to come back and get changed out of your Hill Day garb into your gala gear. Everything is going to be focused right there on site. We encourage everyone to register early if possible. As I said, everything is free except for the Red Shoes Gala. It's going to be a great event at the Red Shoes Gala this year. We hope everyone who is attending Impact Week does decide to come to the gala. And I can see a few comments in the messages saying how happy they are about the gala being at the hotel. I think everyone is going to be thrilled about that. It's going to make everything a little easier, a little tighter. And again, we are just so excited to welcome everyone in. We're going to have our July policy forum a little more hyper-focused on what Hill Day is going to look like. So this will include support for anyone who still needs to set up some meetings, but also an updated look at what these meetings will look like now that we aren't advocating for the passage of the FASD Respect Act. I know it may seem a little more nebulous for some people when there isn't that just one very straightforward ask. We hope that everyone's able to join us for the July policy forum if they plan on attending Hill Day, so we can really dive down deep into the particulars there. For anyone who's just joining us for the first time, or anyone who needs a quick refresher, we're just going to talk very quickly about what the FASD Respect Act has authorized, what it was meant to do, and why this moment matters right now. So the Respect Act, which for everyone here passed and was signed into law at the end of 2025, reauthorizes or authorizes new programs for education, training, and awareness. It reauthorizes programs for the development of improved diagnostic and intervention needs. And it will also allow for a national clearinghouse to be used to inform all of our systems of care across the country. What's different about this effort compared to efforts in the past is that the intent has changed, and that intent is right here where my cursor is, the state and tribal capacity building. For the first time, really, states have been encouraged and will be supported to look at their own systems of care, determine where FASD should already be fitting in, where it should be addressed, and how they can go ahead and do that, how they can address FASD in their own state through the lens of support and coordination, how they can use existing funding stream, their existing systems of support to fill in the gaps that currently exist for families and individuals with an FASD. And that intent is also acknowledging the lack of awareness and gaps in support, and that prevention and support need to be coupled at all times. We've been saying this at the last few policy forums, that we have a new saying that I'm sure everyone is going to be tired of hearing eventually, but when a law is authorized, it does not automatically mean the programs exist or that the money comes into existence to run them. Authorization, which is what we now have, is Congress saying we want this to happen. Appropriations, which is the step that we're all advocating towards now, is Congress saying, here's the money to actually make that happen. These are two separate steps, and the FASD Respect Act passing gave us the authorization. Step two, working on the appropriations or the money, is where we are at now. So when we're talking about appropriations and the step we're at now and what can we be asking our legislators for, This is as simple as we can make it. Fund FASD. The work now is focused on appropriations. It's making sure that dollars follow the Act's intent. The ask, which has come in the form of appropriations requests to committee members on appropriation committees, as well as public testimony from all of you, states that we are asking for $10 million increase at the CDC for FASD programs over fiscal year 26. So that is what was actually enacted in the budget for fiscal year 26. Many of you here, individual advocates, affiliates, other organizations, have already submitted outside witness testimony in support of this specific request. What's missing now are follow-up meetings with senators, because the ball is totally in the Senate's court right now. As it stands right now, the House has passed its FY 27 labor HHS bill through committee. The total level of funding for HHS and related agencies is under what it was at in fiscal year 26. But as a note, the Senate has not yet picked this up or marked up their own bill. So while the House has confirmed what it would like the budget to look like, specifically for the HHS, Health and Human Services, and other related agencies, and they've put that a little under what was enacted last year, the Senate has not yet looked at their budget and taken care of what they want in their appropriations bills. This gives us a key window right now to go out, have plenty of outreach to senators. And when we're saying outreach to senators, we're not just talking about those who are on appropriations committee. We're talking about all senators. You know, let's go back to Jen's favorite saying. You know, everyone has 2 senators and 1 representative. This is everyone focusing on their 2 senators, making sure that they are aware of the needs of the FASD community, particularly as they relate to funding. So what is FASD United doing right now to help fund FASD? As already mentioned, formal requests have already been submitted prior to the submission deadline to any senator and representative who had an open call for appropriations requests. We were able to put in more than we ever have for one session. What we are focused on now is crafting a letter to go to specific senators and specific representatives arguing for greater increases to FASD funding. If that's what FASD United can do, what can everyone else in this community do? As we've already mentioned, many of you, thankfully, were able to submit your outside witness testimony in support of these appropriations requests. What you can do now is make sure that you forward on or send that exact testimony that you sent into the subcommittee to your 2 senators and your 1 representative if you already have it. If you are able to go back into the messages and scroll all the way up to the top, you should be able to see there that there's a link for email templates. Within that link, there's going to be 3 different email templates that you can use. But for this specific one, we've created a template that will make it a little easier for you to reach out to your 2 senators and your 1 representative to send your outside witness testimony to them. As you're doing that, as you're letting them know that this increase in funding for FASD is something that you strongly support, is a bolded ask and a bolded request asking for either a member level meeting or a staff level meeting to discuss this issue. As a reminder of what could have happened to the current FASD funding had we not had the success at the end of 2025 with the FASD Respect Act getting passed, Right now, as Congress is looking at the budget and trying to determine what should receive either additional funding or funding at all, what they're looking for are things called offsets. So if we were to go and ask Congress for additional funds, they may ask, well, where are these funds going to come from? You need an offset somewhere within the specific appropriation bill that will level out the budget essentially. So if you're asking for $10 million increase at CDC, which is at HHS, can you find 10 million somewhere in the budget to erase, to even everything out? Normally, when they're asking for these offsets, what they're looking at are any sort of programs that have lapsed authorization. Anything where there is nothing saying that Congress has authorized these and should appropriate funds for. Up until the end of 2025, this was all FASD funding at the federal level. None of it had authorization. All funding authorization had lapsed many years prior. By having the FASD Respect Act passed at the end of last year, the funding for FASD has at the very least been secured and authorized at stable levels. What we are looking to do now is increase 10 million past what was enacted last year, so funding can start to match prevalence. As we move through the lay of the land section here, I just want a few things to be kept front of mind. All of this is just to provide context for the space that we're working within. So everyone can be as prepared as possible in the summer months of advocacy and is able to look ahead towards the end of the year where things are going to get a little hectic considering considering all of the elections that are happening, the current state of the budget, and what else is happening in the public health space. As mentioned before, there is a new proposed rule at the federal level. So the Office of Management and Budget has proposed a rule that will rewrite something that they call the uniform guidance. And this is something that governs how every single discretionary federal grant is awarded and managed. This proposed rule was published on May 29th. When a rule like this is proposed by an agency, a public comment period opens. So while this proposed rule was published on May 29th, it is open for public comment through July 13th. What this rule aims to do is change how federal grants are reviewed, managed, and terminated. One thing it does is it creates this new political checkpoint that does not currently exist. Senior political appointees under this rule would review discretionary grant proposals and make sure that they all align with the current administration's priorities or the agency priorities. Of note, this political checkpoint here cannot be superseded or replaced by peer review. It also essentially codifies the administration's current stance on DEI by putting a limit on how grant funds can be used. It will make sure that any funds given to an organization will not explicitly go towards DEI, and they've added in accessibility towards DEI. And the third major provision within this proposed rule will grant broad power to the agency to pause, terminate, or otherwise suspend any sort of grants at the discretion of the agency without a hearing or without an appeal. Right now, an agency is only able to suspend or pause a grant if the grant holder is guilty of either non-compliance, so not following the rules set out by the grant, not fulfilling anything that needs to be done within the grant, or through fraud. This third category is just a discretionary category that will allow any grant award to be rescinded or stopped immediately. just as a heads up on this OMB proposed rule, as I mentioned, that there is a call for public comment open through July 13th. I myself am happy to help any individuals or any organizations who would like to submit a public comment against this. I will note that there are already somewhere close to 38 or 39,000 public comments that have been submitted. This is not an instance where flooding them with comments is going to truly make a difference. However, if you believe that you have any additional unique information and you want to throw your voice behind, we are more than happy to help there. I'm going to take a very brief pause and just take a look at the comments or in the chat to make sure that there's nothing that needs to be addressed. Sid, excellent point. And if you want to come off mute and have any sort of discussion about that, more than happy. I'm also happy to hear your thoughts there. The diversity relating to accessibility, to disability, and I say accessibility because it's the adding on of the accessibility to the DEI, which seems like it will give this administration the biggest trouble should this go through any sort of court proceedings. As an organization, it is a very difficult issue and time to jump into. Part of this rule essentially makes it possible for an agency to look at the entire history of an organization as they apply for a grant, essentially. So now, should an organization apply for a grant award, it is not simply what is in their proposal that's going to be graded, and it's not going to be on merit. The agency will be able to go in and look at the entire history of the organization, maybe even social media posts, any publications they've put out, and see if anything that they have done does not align with the current administration's priorities.
Well, the emphasis on DEI tends to have appropriately race, gender, and other issues of bias. We're all familiar with the ways in which bias in screening, both prenatal and postnatal screening, includes a lack of understanding of disability and a lack of understanding of the what some call the intersectionality of overlap between gender and race and other divisions, including disability. So it's a way of taking DEI seriously enough to look at all the ways in which bias can affect allocations.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Sid. And I know you had asked, will an effort be made to point this out? We have currently drafted 2 separate position pieces surrounding this exact issue that we hope to have published in the coming week or so. And I think that will offer a little bit more insight into what you're getting at there, Sid. Thank you so much. And Liz, to answer your question, can you clarify the steps for following up to witness testimony, forwarding to 2 senators and 1 rep? Where are the template memos for that exercise? One moment, I'm going to scroll up and include that link again. So in that link that I just sent, there are 3 different meeting request templates. One can be used if you're requesting a meeting that is specific to Hill Day. One is for requesting a meeting that is specific to your outside public testimony that you've already submitted to the subcommittee. And that's just you letting your representative and 2 senators know, hey, this is something I support. I support it so much. I submitted this outside testimony. I want to have this conversation either with the member or with a part of the appropriations or health staff. Do you have any other specific questions there, Liz? Excellent. Thank you so much. Similar to the OMB proposed rule is a not a Supreme Court, a Department of Justice memo that came out last week concerning a 1999 case, Olmstead versus LC. The 1999 Olmstead decision secured the right for individuals with a disability to receive support in their communities and not in institutions. The memo put out by the Supreme Court, by the Department of Justice, however, argues that this protection is not a mandate and that states do not need to offer supports and services to individuals with communities in their own services, essentially saying that that 1999 court case is not binding. One of the major concerns here is that it argues that unnecessary institutionalization is not illegal. And again, essentially, it's arguing that federal law does not require community services, and it narrows exactly when institutionalization counts as illegal discrimination. One thing that this is doing is it's signaling that the federal government will likely stop enforcing what is called the integration mandate, and which will remove pressure on states to provide actual community services. And it incredibly raises the risk of unnecessary institutionalization. This is especially concerning when taken with things going on at the state level. Earlier this year, Kentucky passed bills that now label certain individuals as children in need of heightened supervision, which allows the states to house these children in need of heightened supervision within detention centers without any suspicion of a crime. So what is FASD United doing in these realms? Individuals, myself included, but not the organization, will be submitting public comment. As I mentioned, I'm also happy to support others in this. Andy and the rest of our communication team have also put together multiple position statements regarding the DOJ Olmstead memo. What can all of you do? If interested and you have the ability to, you can submit a public comment to the rule. You can share your opinion with your legislators on how you feel about both this proposed rule and the Olmstead memo from the DOJ. And you can also reach out to either the ARC or ACLU in your state or national, asking them to stand against both the memo and the proposed rule. Usually when we are offering this lay of the land section, the first two aren't quite as dour, quite as dark. But something I want everyone to keep in mind as we move on to the next two pieces of the lay of the land section, which I promise are more uplifting, is the promised second sports reference. I don't know if anyone watched the NBA finals or has any idea what was going on in the NBA finals, but the MVP of the finals said something that has stuck with me and probably will stick with me forever as someone who loves sports and who is a coach. After losing, the only game they lost during that finals, Jalen Brunson from the Knicks said, "You're allowed to think about the worst possible scenario, but you got to go out there and do something about it." We are not sharing these negative stories just to share negative stories and to get people riled up. We need to remember that it's only productive to stay in this cycle of thinking about all of these worst case scenarios if we're going to go out there and combat that worst case scenario that we all have in our head. I just want everyone to keep that in mind while we talk about what's happening in Michigan and as well as the recent report from the American Academy of Pediatrics. In Michigan, which I think states should be looking towards as a model as they look to implement FASD Respect Act programs and intent at a faster pace than the federal government. 3 separate bills have moved through committee early this month. The first bill, HB 5772, aims to create an FASD task force, state task force that is in line with what the FASD Respect Act calls for, going through this legislation. It mostly mirrors the model legislation put together by Susan for the creation of a state task force, with a few minor differences. The second bill, 5773, also calls for referral to FASD Diagnostic Center for any children coming through a medical center. HB 5774 calls for those children to be referred to early on, an early intervention program. A few notes on these legislations. I'm going to take a quick pause. Just so someone said the links aren't showing up. I'm going to repaste those now quickly. HB 5773, which is the bill that calls for referral to FASD diagnostic centers, originally had two stipulations in there. One was that it called for a medical provider to refer a child or an infant to an FASD diagnostic center anytime they were treating that child or infant for something related to prenatal alcohol exposure. The second instance of referral that was in the bill as written was that if the medical provider suspected a pregnant individual of consuming alcohol during pregnancy, then their child would be referred. That specific provision was taken out in committee. And then finally, the third bill, HB 5774, calls for what happens after that child or infant is referred to a diagnostic center. They are meant to be referred to Early On Michigan, which is Michigan's early intervention program for FASD. Another piece of good news is coming from the American Academy of Pediatrics, who just a few days ago released a report on developmental challenges in foster care. While there is no new data in this report, it does highlight the prevalence of FASD and how often it goes undiagnosed. Of note, the AAP calls for universal screening for FASD and for alcohol use during pregnancy, and specifically calls for an increase in funding for identification. This aligns with the NIAAA's recent support of using alcohol as a vital sign. NIAAA has been supportive of using alcohol use as a vital sign and has helped Kaiser Permanente of Northern California adopt it as a vital sign. I believe that is the only region in the United States currently doing this. And what that does is that it shows us that there is a trend towards universal screening in the country. There is a trend towards treating alcohol use and its effects on health as an issue for all Americans, for the entire country, rather than focusing in on certain segments, which can make it more difficult for providers to have those conversations and can act as barriers to support. So what is FASD United doing for these two specific lay of the land items? FASD United is actively doing outreach to Michigan legislators to work with them on the legislation, especially the creation of the FASD task force. And what can all of you do? You can use this as model legislation. Send it to your state legislative contacts as an example of possible legislation, or to show that progress is being made in other states. The AAP report, which is linked in the chat now, I hope someone can confirm that those links are showing up in the chat now. It's a great time to send that over to one of your contacts for your federal representatives and your senator as well. Let them know that this work is being done on FASD, and specifically it's being done by an organization that is not 100% focused on FASD, and it's showing the cross-cutting nature of fetal alcohol spectrum disorders.
Hey, Chris,
Yeah,
can I ask a question real quick?
please,
On
yeah.
the Michigan House bills, the second one, did I hear you say that they can't refer somebody to the diagnostic clinic if it's suspected, only if it's proven?
It's not that they can't, it's just not stipulated. A provider is not required to refer
Okay.
to diagnostic on suspicion.
Okay.
Right. And, you know, removing that, even just that word suspicion, and removing that sort of room for the provider to work within is one way to actually decrease some stigma involved with this entire process.
Okay.
Thank you, Karen. Moving on here, we are, again, getting back to basics and talking about how we can meet the moment. So many of you have been along this journey for years and years at this point, and you were there at the beginning of the FASD Respect Act shift, and we hope you'll be with us as we move through this next phase of advocacy. But I think it's important that we get back to what has worked and get back to what makes this community so strong, and that is all of you face-to-face with the people who can make an impact and make decisions. But before I ask you all to go out there and take meetings, not that all of you aren't aware of the benefits of these, let's just go through a little bit of some evidence to show that they work. We know from reports that come out about every 2 years from the Congressional Management Federation that 97% of Hill staffers say that a meeting can influence an undecided member. 94% of those staffers say that meeting with a member is actually the most effective tactic for advocacy and is more effective than any other tactic. And you already know this, 100% of you have experience worth sharing. We know that one meeting can and does make a difference. We've seen this happen multiple times. I've already brought this up quite a few times. They're both on this call, so I'm going to do it again. Ruben and Kristen out of Massachusetts were able to secure a meeting with Senator Markey just a few years ago. And while they weren't able to have a member level meeting, they met with someone who had a fellowship in the senator's office. Her name was Berlina. She sat there. She had incredible questions. She listened. She was engaged. Once she finished her fellowship, she went on to work at SAMHSA, which is where she is now. Once there, she looked around, realized that SAMHSA wasn't doing any FASD work anymore. They once had, and she decided to bring it back. That one meeting by MassFAS and other advocates has now led SAMHSA to look at their budget and decide, hey, we actually do have some funding available to jumpstart some FASD work in the States. This is something that people like Sid have been talking about for years, I'm sure. There are funding streams available out there. There are programs that should be doing the work for the FASD community out there already. We need to find them and tap into them and start making them do the work for us. Why now, though? Why do we now need to get back to basics? Why now do we need to have these meetings? And I mean specifically right now. There's a few different reasons. One of the main reasons is that members are heading home to their district soon. From July 3rd to July 12th, and for almost the entirety of August, members will be at home and in districts. There are also many, many elections coming up at the end of this year. As a reminder, every 2 years, all House seats are up for election and 1/3 of Senate seats, and then any others that have special elections are up for election. There's also huge turnover expected for senators, for House of Reps, and also for gubernatorial races. During this time in this window, it's been shown that representatives, senators are more receptive to their constituents. They're fighting for your votes. This isn't always true. I wish it were always true, but when they are home and in district, absolutely a great time to be asking for in-person member level meetings. And the clock is also running on the budget. As we mentioned, the House has just about sorted out their budget, their appropriation bills, but the Senate hasn't really started looking at theirs yet. We are in that window right now where decisions are being made, and we need to make sure that FASD is on the agenda and in their ear so they can consider us. Recess calendars, so the calendars, the schedules of members while they are in district, do tend to fill up quick. I do really encourage everyone here to reach out right after this meeting if they are interested and think that they have the ability to have a meeting with their representative or senators in district. Right now, what is FASD United doing in this realm? We are more than happy to supply any contact info for members and members' staff. We also have the email templates that are attached in the chat here. Again, I'm encouraging absolutely everyone right after this meeting to highlight their 2 senators and their 1 representative and to request a meeting as soon as possible, whether it is in district during the break or virtually, which we are more than happy to jump onto. Get that meeting request in as soon as possible so we can get these meetings going, we can stay in their ear, and we can make sure that FASD is on the agenda. Something else that we're doing is looking at potential new members that will be joining Congress, and specifically, should the tide turn and majority and minority parties swap, who could take over key committee positions? What can all of you do for this? I think that's very obvious from what I've been getting at. Request a meeting with your 2 senators and your 1 representative today. If that is the what now, let's talk about the what now. You know, maybe you have a meeting, but what do we talk about? We don't have this one ask of, hey, we need the FASD Respect Act passed. You can ask to fund FASD. We know that prevalence and awareness of FASD do not match. We knew that prevalence does not match funding, and it has not kept pace over the last 20 or so years. A very straightforward and easy ask is to support funding FASD programs at the CDC at $21.5 million for fiscal year 27. This is a $10 million increase over what was enacted in FY26. And while we realize that this ask is coming in a year where the House seemingly is spending less on health than they did before, we have a pretty good case to make that FASD has been just keeping their head above water for the last 20 or so years, as we've seen funding be cut by about 50%. Also remind them that FASD Respect Act has demonstrated that Congress has an intent to update the national and state level response to FASD, and that just saying that isn't enough. We now need the funding to follow. Living experience. As I mentioned before, every single person here, 100% of the FASD advocacy community has a story worth sharing. Your experience is what brings data and research to life, and it's what we know makes legislators care. What we saw with the FASD Respect Act is that policy change happens at that point where experience and research meet, so experience can bring research to life. And you can keep the conversation focused on what matters: support and empowerment for individuals with FASD and their families. Keep in mind that the language that you use when speaking with legislators is the language that they will use. The attitude you have towards FASD, public health, the disability space, can be the attitude specifically that young staffers can adopt. Keep the focus on what will help you and your family. Tie your living experience to all of the data and all of the research that we have. And it makes a very, very compelling case. One way that we are looking to help support everyone as they are jumpstarting their advocacy for the summer, getting back to basics and meeting the moment, is we are updating our FASD policy website. Coming Friday, June 26th, we will have all 50 states fully updated on our policy website page. And I just want to go through a few different things that you'll be able to find there that should be able to help you. Just like before, you'll find all of the same information. You'll be able to find your state's federal congressional representatives listed. So that's your 2 senators. Have a full listing of the representatives in your state listed by their district, including their parties. You can click on their names and it'll go straight to your website. There's also a link on the page that will allow you to book a meeting directly with me. So if you are going through and you are looking to set up meetings with your senator, as soon as you do that, you can go onto your state page, click on the book a meeting with Chris Melfi, just type in exactly when the meeting is happening, and that's going to populate on my calendar. So I know that, excellent, we have someone who set up a meeting with the representative. We know exactly how we can help them and support them. You'll also be able to find a link to find your representative if you aren't sure. But now a few things that are new. You'll also be able to see, as you can see up here, any relevant committees that the members are on and whether or not they co-sponsored in FASD Respect Act legislation in the past. There will also be info on your governor, a link to their state page, and also a link to submit a proclamation in your state. One project we are currently working on is the state legislation aggregation here. As we are going through and compiling any legislation in states that is related to FASD, they will all be aggregated there. So you can take a look to see, okay, this is what historically has been done in my state. And also here is what is being done right now with call to actions. And finally, there is the advocacy contact section. It is our hope that we are able to list in states that have an affiliate, at least one policy contact from that affiliate. So new advocates who are coming into this space are able to see, hey, my state is doing this work on this state legislation. I can reach out to this person to see how I can support. This does not need to be just an affiliate. We would love to have multiples in the state. I'm going to call out Illinois right now, just because I know we have a couple of people there. I think it would be great to have one of our affiliates linked here as an advocacy contact, but I also think it would totally make sense to have someone like Michelle Traeger listed there, who is doing so much of the coordination work in the state. If this is something you're interested in, please reach out to me and we can discuss that. Again, these state pages will be fully live on Friday, along with the recording of this session and all the slides. We hope it'll make it a little bit easier for you as you organize your thoughts, organize your advocacy moving into the summer. And as all of you try to meet the moment, get back to basics, and start looking to set up some meetings with legislators. We're coming to the end of the hour here, but I just want to leave everyone with a few thoughts. Anyone who is interested in, anyone who plans on coming to Impact Week this year, I suggest getting in there, register early. Again, totally free. All events are totally free with the exception of the Red Shoes Gala. Feel free to register now for all Impact Week events and then go back and register for the gala if you're not 100% sure that's something that you'll be going to. Pick one senator or your rep this week and reach out to them and start requesting your meetings. Again, getting back to basics, I think, is what is going to move us forward here in our fight to start funding FASD the way it deserves to be funded. We here at FASD United are going to support you just the same way we did during the FASD Respect Act. If you want support finding who you should even be contacting within your member's office, if you want to sit down prior to the meeting to discuss what you want to talk about and flow. And of course, we would love to join these meetings. But I think what is important is getting the ball rolling, reaching out to the offices, letting them know, hey, here's what I support, here's why I support it. And I really would appreciate 30 minutes to discuss this with you. And also, if you haven't already, start coordinating your state on who and how you're going to put in a proclamation request to your governor. Again, we've made it really, really easy this year. You can go to your updated state page on the FASD policy website, click on your state, and you should be able to find the direct link to submit your proclamation. You can also email me and we can set up a call to talk about this more. Really happy to help states get this done as best we can. I think this was the best timed forum I've ever run as we come up to the top of the hour here, but I would love to open it up to anyone who has questions, comments, concerns. Susan, Tom, thank you both so much for joining. If you have anything to add as well. Also happy to not take any questions, not take any concerns. Do you want to reiterate that the slides and the recording will be published on Friday? You'll be able to just check our blog for the YouTube recording. And again, if you're leaving here with one thing, it's that, you know, it's okay to think about the bad situation as long as we're out there working towards the good situation. And the one step I can give you for that right now is continue what has worked for us. Reach out to your legislators, set a meeting as soon as you possibly can, and let's get back to basics and make sure that not only this community, but the legislators that serve us are also meeting the moment. Michelle, that's a great question. I say yes. If the question was, if you're coming to Hill Week, should we reach out for both locations? I think, yeah, I think yes. I think that what we should be focused on for Hill Day are member level meetings. So if you look at the email template that I've included, those are specifically asking for meetings with your senator or with your representative. Of course, they say, you know, if this isn't possible, we're happy to meet with other members of the team. But the goal is for Hill Day that you'll be meeting with a member. You can also have that be your request in the meantime. Just know that it's easier to meet with a member the further out you request this. So all this is to say, you might meet with a member of an appropriations or health staff if you reach out for a meeting later today. And that really just sets you up for a more productive, exploratory meeting when it comes to Hill Day, right? A lot of times, the first time you meet with someone, it's descriptive, it's introductory. You're letting them know, this is what FASD, this is what it looks like for me, for my family. And a lot of the times, it's gonna be the first time these people have really engaged with FASD. That second meeting, that third meeting is when you can really, really engage and explore what FASD is, what are some resources available in the state, and what are some ways that we can be more successful. So yes, absolutely. Honestly, the more meetings, the better, especially when they're spread out across about 3 months like they would be in this case. I am happy to stay on for another 15 or so minutes before my 3:30 meeting starts. But again, I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us today. I know the beginning of summer can be a tough time for a lot of people schedule-wise. It was so nice to see everyone here. As always, please reach out if you have any questions at all. If you're looking for support with the affiliate network, we have Emma Baldwin here you can reach out to. If you opened up one of the links that I sent earlier, that is the 2026 FASD awareness toolkit and website, and you want any support with that, or you just want to tell us how great it was, that's going right to Sophie CC. But thanks everyone so much, and I will hang out for a few minutes and answer any questions off air.